This week in economics on the 4th of April 2015, Numbers Man here. On some of the outlets, this will air on the 5th, but yet it will still be timely. We'll start by working our way back into the U.S. or into North America, primarily the U.S., as we look at various PMIs from the official Chinese government, from HBSC, the market people, and various other things to set up this particular matrix, we'll call it, of industrialized nations and how the the impact of output affects the economies. And we'll conclude with the U.S. because we'll talk about basically how external conditions outside the U.S. affected the U.S. economy, and in a more general way, industrial economies throughout the world. The major ones, we'll look at China, we'll look at Japan, Brazil, the Russian Federation, and others from different perspectives, from the perspective of market HBSC with China and the official Chinese agency. We'll start with the official Bureau of Statistics. This is the Chinese agency, and information reported from the two. There is some conflict. We'll go as the authority, the Bureau of Statistics, the People's Republic. This is the Department of Service Statistics here, the Chinese Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. In March 2015, non-manufacturing purchase managed index was at 53.7%, slightly decreased 0.2% over the previous month and 3.7% higher than the threshold, indicating that the Chinese non-manufacturing sector continues to maintain growth in a slower rate, and we emphasize in a slower rate. In the view of different industries, non-manufacturing purchasing manager index of services was 53.3%, decreasing 0.9% over the previous month, indicating that total business service industry continues to maintain growth, but at a slower down, of which the indices of internet, software, information technology, water, transport, telecommunications, broadcasting, television, and satellite transmission services. Accommodation posts were positions in the higher level of range, and business activities were active. The indices of restaurants, retail trade, air transportation were below the threshold. The total enterprise business declined. A non-manufacturing purchase and managed index of construction industry achieved 58.9%, up 2.4% over the previous month, indicating that growth of total enterprise business of construction industry maintained increasing. New orders index was at 50.3, down 0.9% over the previous month, higher than the threshold, indicating the non-manufacturing market demand maintained growth while increase narrowed. In the view of different industries, the new order index of services, it was 49.2%, decrease of 1.7% over the previous month. The new order index of construction industry was at 54.7%, increasing 2.4% over the previous month, and a growth rate of market demand increased. Input price index was at 50%, down by 2.5% over the last month. Stayed the threshold, indicating the input price during the process of production and operation of non-manufacturing enterprise, kept at the same level over the last month, and in view of different industries. The intermediate input price index service industry was 50.3, a decrease of 3.1% over the previous month. The input price index of construction industry was 49.1, a slight increase of 0.1% over the previous month, and continues to stay below the threshold. The sales price index was 48.4%, 2.8% points lower than last month's, showing that the index of level of non-manufacturing sales prices below that of last month in view of different industries. The sales price index of service industry is 48.2%, a decrease of 3.3% over the previous month. Sales price index of construction industry was 49.5%, down 0.3% over last month. Employment index at 49%, decrease of 0.8 percentage points over the previous month, and continues to stay below the threshold, indicating that labor employment of non-manufacturing enterprises decreased in view of different industries. The employment index of service industry was at 48.2, a decrease of 1% over the previous month, and was below the threshold. The employment index of construction industry was 52.4%, up 0.5% over last month. Business activity expectation index was 58.8%, went up 0.1% over last month. Continues to be positioned in higher range, indicating that non-manufacturing enterprises continue to maintain optimism about market development expectation in the next 3 months. Now, this is March, so basically we are talking about here April, May, and June. And looking at various positions here in 2014, they were at, in March, at 54.5%, in April 54.8%, and we'll just skip on down in September at 54. So they pretty much were around 54. And in, let's see if we get down here, December they were at 54.1. In February 53.9. And of course we gave you March. And in January 53. And these are seasonally adjusted non-manufacturing PMI. Other indices of Chinese non-manufacturing PMI is seasonally adjusted. I won't look at those, but a little exclamation here. The China non-manufacturing purchasing index consists by 12 sub-indexes. They are business activity index, the new order index, new export order index, in-hand order index, stock index, input price index, sales price index, employment index, supplier index, time index, and business activity exclamation index. And due to the lack of synthesis of non-manufacturing integrated PMI indexes, the International Society often uses business activity to reflect the overall changes in non-manufacturing economic development. A PMI reading above 50, it's the same with market, indicates expansion from the previous month, while below indicates contraction. And the statistical coverage here, the survey involves 27 non-manufacturing industry categories and industry classifications from the National Economic Activities, and was conducted in 1,200 sampling enterprises there nationwide, or countrywide as they call it. The non-manufacturing purchase index was conducted in a PPS, that is a probability proportional to size. Sampling method. We won't go much more into this, but this is their particular method here. And now let me start by looking at the different index from the market HBMC people, and we have a number of these indexes here. And we'll start with the China Services PMI index, which covers both manufacturing and services here. The rate of growth remains modestly overall, with HBMC's composite index of 51.8% unchanged from February. There, the further modest increase in total business activity was driven by further expansions of output across both service providers and manufacturing in March. That said, the rate of growth eased slightly at manufacturing, but edged up to a 3-month high at service companies. This was highlighted by the HSBC China Business Activity Index, posting at 53.3%, up from 52%. The latest survey signals divergent trends with regard to new business, with manufacturing noting a slight contraction of new orders, while new work rose modestly at service providers. That said, it was the slowest increase in new workload in the service sector since July of 2014. Consequently, a new business at the composite level expanded at a marginal rate that was weakest in 10 months. Employment trends also differed between two monitored sectors in March, with service providers increasing their staffing while manufacturers cut their workforce at the sharpest rate in 7 months. However, the pace of service sector job creation was only slight, having eased a 10-month low. Employment declined for the first time since last September, but at a marginal rate. Outstanding business declined for the second consecutive month at service providers in March, while a backlog of work continues to increase at manufacturers. Moreover, the rate of backlog depletion in the service sector quickened slightly since February, with a number of monitored companies noting increased efforts to clear unfinished work overloads. However, the level of work in hand at the composite level increased slightly. The average input price continues to fall sharply as manufacturing companies in March, while service sector firms noted further rise in cost burdens. However, the rate of inflation, and this is very important, and we'll get to this in the U.S. Sectors seen by the service sector, was only marginal and much slower than the series average. Meanwhile, average cost burdens at composite level declined for the 7th month in a row. March data indicated a further marked fall in price change by manufacturing companies. Optimism, this is the same as the governmental survey said, towards the 12-month. In the government survey, with 3 months, outlook improved slightly in the Chinese service sector at the first Q1, with a degree of positive sentiment picking up the second strongest in 6 months. And this is basically the key points here. Business activity growth picks up slightly at service providers, it weakens at manufacturers. And this will be across many countries in the manufacturing sector. New orders slowed at the service sector firms, and composite employment dropped for the first time in 6 months. A little conflict between the two, but not something that we'll look at. Let me move along here. I'll go to Japan very quickly here. Service sector activity falls for the second straight month. That's the key points here. The service sector activity contrasts while new orders stagnate, employment levels at Japanese service firms decline. And the summary is the latest data signal a deterioration in business conditions in Japan's service sector. Activity declined for the second month running the new order stagnation, consequently service